In today's world, people think their answers either come from a quick fix or fall outside their reach. Welcome to the Impact Multiplier webinar series. Leadership insights that help you build success strategies, leverage the resources already within you to multiply your impact. Each teaching gives you the opportunity to tap into the potential that's already there. Why look outside for your answers when you already have the resources to make a difference? Now here's your host, Jan DeGallier.
Hi everyone, welcome. Jan DeGallier here. I am so glad you've joined in for our webinar today called Building Stick-to-itiveness. As we get started, I would love to ask you to share a hello in the chat box. Let me know that you're here. Let's all come together and kick this off together, okay? When building stick-to-itiveness, there's nothing better than to know each other, support each other along the way. Also, we do have a webinar guide as we go through our topic today, so grab a copy of that. There's a link in the chat box if you don't have that already, and make sure you grab the link, download a copy, you can follow along, and we are going to have some exercises using that webinar guide a little bit later into our topic today as well. So thank you everyone for sharing your hello. If you haven't done it already, drop a comment in the chat box. Let us know that you're here. Share your name, where you're coming in from. We would love to hear from you. Okay, great. Well, let's get started. And I would like to also introduce myself. I'm a business results coach. I have a unique small boutique firm focused on helping businesses and leaders, connecting them to success strategies, helping them make the best use of the resources that they have, their strategic plan, their processes, and of course, their most valuable resource, their people. And so building stick-to-itiveness is part of a webinar series I've been hosting all year. So don't you think it's just a great topic to use to wrap up the year with? December is normally that time of the year, right? It's a traditional time to pause and reflect, look back and look at what we've accomplished and what we didn't accomplish. So let me share with you, I do have a little outline of what we're going to talk about today. And we are going to cover a number of topics tied to building strategies and thought processes around building stick-to-itiveness. So we're going to delve in and start with the power of the pause. We're going to dig into a little bit more the topic of reflection. We're also going to go over some misconceptions of success because I think it's important to understand what what challenges we have with achieving our goals. Also, we're going to go through a 3-step strategy to building our stick-to-itiveness. And we're going to also talk about building our persistence muscle as well. So let's jump in. Let's go ahead and jump into the power of the pause and ask yourself, am I where I want to be? Have I reached my goals? Because there truly is power in the pause. If you have a growth plan, you know that reflecting is part of the process, right? It's necessary, and it's actually one of the most valuable activities that people can use to grow. We need to evaluate our experiences, gain insight, and gain personal awareness. We also need to be able to measure where we're at through evaluated experience. And this process ultimately helps us up-level our thinking. And I know a lot of people say at this point, what does my thinking have to do with it? I thought this was just about the doing part of it. Set a goal and just do it. Well, my answer to that is that when you're not combining the thinking with the doing, that goal or that New Year's resolution, it doesn't go much farther than just a few weeks into January. Has anybody ever experienced that before, setting a New Year's resolution and not getting past January? If you can relate to that, put a yes in the chat. Let us know that you've had some challenges with that because I think we're all in that together. Let us know if you've run into some goals that haven't gotten much past January, because truthfully, any worthwhile achievement is inherently difficult to achieve. People just don't want to wake up one day thinking, oh, there's nothing more that I want to do to run a mile and automatically turn that into a habit that I can just perform for the rest of my life. We're just not wired that way, right? Creating change in our lives It takes time, it takes effort, energy, and sacrifice. So we're going to use the webinar guide, and on page 1 of your webinar guide, if you open that up, we're going to talk about one of the current goals that you're working on. So I would love to have you take a peek at your webinar guide, page 1, and what your first step to do is think of one of your current goals that you are working on. Maybe for you, it has to do with your health or your physical body. Maybe you want to stick to your diet and lose 20 pounds. Or maybe for you, it's about sticking to your budget. You want to do better at your finances so you could perhaps save some money for that dream trip that you want to take. Maybe also it could have to do with your career. You might want to earn a promotion at work, or maybe it's about relationships and in doing better at your relationships, like with your spouse, for example. So go ahead, think of one of the current goals that you are working on, jot it down, take notes, and take that moment to pause and reflect. Make sure that you're asking yourself the tough questions here too, because you need to honestly evaluate where you're at with that goal. There's a quote from Henry Arnold who said, "The wise man questions himself, the fool questions others." So keep that in mind as you're reflecting. Good questions are at the heart of reflection. Are you seeing success as you're thinking about that goal that you wrote down? Do you have some good momentum? From there, keep asking yourself more questions. Why? Why are you seeing success? Or why not? Why are you stuck? Are you stuck somewhere along the way? Or you might be asking yourself, why do I succeed at some things but not at others? Or maybe, do you just get started and then find yourself making some progress a little bit, but before long, you fall into the cycle where you've started strong, but you're not able to maintain it? How about you? Does that one sound familiar? I know I can relate. I've been there because I can see areas where I can do better, where I have more potential. I've occasionally found myself stuck, not being able to move forward and get the results that I want or that I need. Like at one point during my corporate finance career, that was about a 30-year span, I found myself stuck in the trap of trying to advance my career. I was in a job that I thought would open up more doors to more opportunity, thinking that, well, if I work harder and work more, then my employer could really see my potential because those doors weren't opening for me. I was stuck. I wasn't aware that the opportunity really wasn't there for me. I was stuck not realizing that doing more of the same usually results in more of the same. I was stuck not realizing that working hard doesn't guarantee success and that hope isn't a strategy. I was stuck not realizing that in order to fulfill my potential, I needed to be intentional about my own personal growth plan, growing myself and learning how to better deal with some of the gaps I was experiencing. I needed to focus on that and not just wait for someone else to do it for me. So speaking of gaps, what do I mean by gaps? Well, first of all, I want to mention we all have gaps. These are the gaps in between where we are today and where we want to be. So think about it this way. Do you want to get better results in some area of your life? So take a look at these categories that I have on the screen. This is called the Wheel of Life. These are some general categories that we all have in our lives across the span of the different areas in our lives. So it might be about your career. Perhaps it's money or financial. Could be your health, could be relationships, or personal growth or spiritual growth, all those different areas of our lives. I want to ask, do you want to get better results in one of these areas in your life? If you are someone who would like to see some results in one of these areas, go ahead, put a me in the comments, put a me in the chat box, okay? Because let's get some conversation going on this. This is something I actually do with my private coaching clients. Yes, I'm a business results coach, but working one-on-one with leaders, working on your professional results, you also need to take into account all areas of your life. It all ties together. It's not mutually exclusive. Now, when I ask the question, do you want to get better results to the people that I work with? Almost everyone says yes. However, more often than not, people make a goal. They set resolutions, but fail to follow through. So this is where the rubber meets the road with what I'm going to share with you today. And believe me, you're going to find that this presentation won't be like most others. It's not going to be your typical achieve your goals the easy way with these 5 steps. It's not going to be that type of lesson. This topic goes way beyond the step-by-step SMART goal concepts. I'm assuming you've all been through how to set goals. You make it specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, has to have a time frame, makes up the letters of SMART, the S-M-A-R-T. I'm assuming you've had some training like that. And don't get me wrong, it's a good framework to use. You need to have a system or a process to use to set your goals and achieve your goals. So yes, I will be sharing some tips on how to better achieve your goals, building some strategies that put structure to the process. That's a necessary ingredient. However, when what you're doing isn't working, it's time to think differently about the gap between where you are and where you want to be, because you can have the best strategy, but you can't bridge the gap with the same level of thinking that you were trying to use before. And here's the root of the problem. Let me share with you some common misconceptions of success, because most people really misunderstand success. John Maxwell has some great insights on this in his book, Today Matters. Here's a few of those misconceptions of success that he shares. The kinds of misconceptions that can cloud your thinking when it comes to achieving goals. So these are 5 of them. He shares a lot more than this, but I wanted to just pull up 5 of them that related to our topic today. So here is the first one. First and foremost misconception of success that we have is that we believe success is impossible. So what do we do when we believe success is impossible? We criticize it. So let me ask, is life easy? No. But we really want to believe that it should be easy. And that leads us to believe that when we find that life is more difficult than what we expect, we just automatically assume that success must be impossible. When success eludes us, we assume it's beyond our reach. We start to criticize it. Who wants success anyways? But if success is achieved by someone we don't consider worthy, we definitely get critical towards them as well. It becomes kind of like a crab in the bucket mentality. Have you heard of that? It's a really interesting phenomenon. So a crab placed in a bucket by itself, it's going to easily climb out and escape. No big deal. But if you put a crab in a bucket with more crabs, as each crab tries to climb and escape and get out of the bucket, the other crabs will pull them back down, eventually leading them all to their collective demise. So that's the first one. We have the misconception that success is impossible. The second one is that we believe success is mystical. So what do we do when we believe success is mystical? We search for it. We're looking for that magic formula, the quick fix, trying to find that easy way to just solve all of our problems. We chase fad diets, we get hooked by the infomercial, and that's just because we want the rewards of success without paying the price. The third misconception of success is that we believe that success comes from luck. So what do? We hope for it. How many times have you heard someone explain away someone else's success with a comment like, oh, well, he was in the right place at the right time? Or they also might say, she was an overnight success, just like that. So when we hear things like that, and we start to become hopeful, like there's a possibility for ourselves, for something like that to happen to us. But listen, few successful people came about their success this way. It's very, very rare. Instead, think about it this way. People, you and me, we need to remember that we basically create our own luck. The fourth misconception of success is that we believe success is productivity. What do? We work for it. Who can relate to this one? There's something about working hard and producing results that feels very rewarding, right? I can say with my career example This was exactly the trap that I fell into. That rewarding feeling easily gets defined as success, even when you're not even seeing any results of success on the back end. Although it's an admirable trait, hard work alone doesn't bring success. So when you approach it unilaterally like that, you can neglect important relationships. You can ruin your health. It leads to burnout. Number 5, we believe success comes from opportunity. And when we believe success comes from opportunity, we just wait for it to happen. So what are the clues to see if you're falling into this trap? Well, you need to watch for the if onlys. If only my boss would cut me some slack. If only I could get a promotion. If only I could have a bigger budget. Then life would be so much better. Or if only my kids would behave, then life would be perfect. And on and on. We have so many if onlys. But think about it this way. Here's what we find with people who do nothing more than just wait for an opportunity. Those people that wait wouldn't necessarily even be ready to capitalize on it when it did appear. So who can relate to any of these 5 misconceptions of success? Is there any specific one that holds you back the most? I want you to drop that in the chat. Put it down. Which of these 5 misconceptions of success? Believing success is impossible, mystical, it's just plain old luck, the misconception of productivity and opportunity. Which one of those do you fall into the easiest? Great. Go ahead, drop it in the chat. And I know we've definitely gone over some of these things. We've talked a lot about what not to think. We've covered the gaps. We've covered these misconceptions of success. But what's the missing piece in being able to successfully follow through and achieve our goals? Well, here's the answer that most people miss. And I think you're going to be surprised. It's not because you're not good enough. That's not the missing piece. It's not because you don't have potential. I believe in you. If you set the goal and you work on it and you gain the skills to do it, I believe that you are able to achieve it. It's not because the missing piece is not because you don't know all the right people. Think about it this way. If that was the case, wouldn't all the children of successful business people or famous Hollywood actors or politicians just automatically have it made? That's not the case. And the missing piece isn't just because you don't have a position or power over others. A lot of people just assume that the only way to be successful and overcome disadvantages is to have the advantage of power, the kind that comes from position or status, the kind of power that means you're taking advantage of others and forcing others to get what you want. So none of those are true. None of those are the missing pieces. If you think about people like Saddam Hussein or Adolf Hitler, or just perhaps an arrogant CEO, like all people who abuse power to get ahead, they fail in the end. Instead, here's what it is. The missing piece of the puzzle. It's to simply focus on today. The mindset of today matters, not yesterday. It's too late for yesterday. And it's not about tomorrow either. You just can't depend on tomorrow. The secret of your success is determined by today's daily agenda, each and every day. And your daily agenda is not even the same as your to-do list. It's not the same concept. This is where your level of thinking comes into play. It's something bigger than just a to-do list. This mindset of focusing on today becomes a new approach to life. You make the decision once and then focus on managing it daily. So, good news. It's really good news that you are here today. You can start today. You don't have to wait until January. Maximize what you can do today in order to move forward. Okay, let me share some perspective with you before we dive into some tips for building stick-to-itiveness. And I think it will help you understand the process of change. It will give you a map of the steps that you can use for change to help successfully manage change. And you just can't skip any of these steps. So here's a visual that I want to share with you. And it's something that I use in my business to help explain this to my clients. because it's easy to lose track of where you are in the process. So this is going to help you understand that change process. The way you need to be successful at change is to simply use the word lift. So with the word lift, if you start with the letter L, first step, you need to learn. You need to gain wisdom. That's the very first starting point. Once you do that, you then have the I. You need to integrate. You need to intentionally find ways to practice and hone your skills. Just start doing it and just try to start getting good at it. The next step after the I is the F. It's about fusing it all together. This means that you're applying the skills and the processes that you're practicing, you're integrating it into your day-to-day. It just starts becoming automatic at that point. When you fuse it into everything you're doing, you don't even need to think about it anymore. It's like driving a car or riding a bike. And then the last step is to transform. This is where change is happening. You're getting the results you're looking for. But I want to caution you, you can't stop there. You can't say I'm at the T, I'm at transformation and I've arrived. You also need to continue to learn and adjust as you go, which means you're starting back at the L again. You're learning some more. You're integrating what you've learned and adjusted into your next step of the process. You're fusing it and then transforming again. It's a continual process along the way. And transformation is not something that you can just declare and be done. It's not an event either. It's not just a one and done thing. Change is a daily process. Each day it's about applying the lift process that we're showing here, and that will merely prepare you for the next day. Does that make sense? Great. And sounds easy, right? But wait, don't fall into any of those misconceptions of success, right? Remember, any worthwhile achievement is inherently difficult to achieve. It's not impossible, but it's going to be a challenge. We need to become the change we want to see. It takes time, effort, energy, and sacrifice to close the gap. And every day, make what I like to call your strategy sandwich. So how do you make your strategy sandwich? Well, you get a couple pieces of bread. The first piece is your decision. Decisions are what get you started. That's your first piece of bread. And your second piece of bread that you're going to use is discipline. That helps you finish. And you always need both pieces to make your sandwich. These two, they can't be separated. One is worthless without the other. And once you have those two pieces of bread, you're going to make your sandwich. Your decision and your discipline, and then right smack dab in the middle is your strategy. That's what holds it all together. So perfect segue. We're going to talk about the 3 steps to building stick-to-itiveness. It's the strategy. So let's keep going on that strategy sandwich, right? By the way, who's getting hungry here? So we've got the front end covered, we've got the back end covered, decisions and discipline. So now let's dig into some strategy, a list of some ways that you can be strategic about your decisions and your discipline, and ultimately be well on your way to building better habits that become integrated, fused together to create transformation. And by the way, we're going to have some challenges along the way for each of the 3 steps. So have your webinar guide handy, okay? Go ahead, download it. There should be some links in the comments and in the chat box. Let's start with step 1. The very first step to building stick-to-itiveness in our 3-step strategy is to start with a plan. You need to build a plan. And first and foremost, you need to focus on starting. Later on, after you've started, you'll be able to be strong enough to run a marathon later on down the line. But today, start by walking around the block. And if starting just looks like you are lacing up your sneakers and walking up and down the stairs, as long as you make the first move to get started, that's perfect. You are starting to manage it daily. The other thing you want to remember is to slow down. Take things one at a time. I know this is easier for some than others, but anyone can do it if they set their mind to it. We were even taught this as kids, right? How many of you have heard the children's story, The Tortoise and the Hare, Aesop's Fables? Yep, you know it. The hare was making fun of the tortoise, so the tortoise challenged the hare to a race, and that hare was so confident during the race, he stopped and he felt so confident that he could even just take a nap, and that he was going to for sure beat the tortoise. But lo and behold, the hare woke up only to find the tortoise slowly but surely crossing the finish line. And at the end of the day, who won the race? Yep, the tortoise. So take things one at a time, and it really helps to start with something small. If you make huge changes all at once, you're likely going to crash because the evolution is unsustainable for the long term. So say your goal is to start doing an hour of yoga every day, if that's your goal. Achieving this outcome right away is going to be nearly impossible because it's such a big change. Sure, you might be able to do it for a few days in a row, but after that, staying on track is going to become more and more difficult. And don't even focus on your results as you're forming this habit. It's okay, just do it without focusing on the results to begin with. Just get in the habit of doing it. For me, 10 years ago, getting more physical exercise was one of my goals. What was my goal to begin with? It wasn't to just automatically be able to run a mile or lift weights at my max weight right off the bat. But my goal was to just simply get to the gym. I set the goal to go 3 times a week. That's the threshold that I had to cross. That was it. But it was interesting. Once I got there, I wanted to make it worth my while, and it was a lot easier to be motivated. The third thing to remember when you're building your plan to building stick-to-itiveness is to make sure that your environment will help you succeed. So while you're in the beginning stages of creating change, take steps to reconstruct your environment so you're less tempted to fall back into your old ways. Say you have a goal to set aside time to build a personal website during your free time after your day job. But Netflix, it's calling your name. That new series that you have queued up, it's so tempting. So I encourage you, instead of just getting sucked into your old habits and your old ways, create a better space to do your work and eliminate some of those comforts that might tempt you over to the couch to do a little binge watching. Kind of like that, get rid of that fuzzy blanket, don't have your phone within reach. Create all of the scenarios that could get you sucked in and change it. Don't let it suck you in. Also, a great strategy to plan for, especially if your new habit is something you haven't had time for in the past, make it a habit and get it done at the beginning of the day. When you stay ahead of your schedule, you eliminate the need to procrastinate, therefore removing a source of stress. So when you do it early in the day, you get to cross it off your list and get back the rest of your day. Just imagine what you can get done by getting up just 15 minutes earlier. You'll be amazed at how much you can get done by consistently doing extra 15 minutes every day. It really adds up. It's exponential. So now we are at the point, we are going to do our first challenge. It's on page 2 of your webinar guide. And with step number 1, the challenge that I want you to do, page 2 of your webinar guide, is to take a moment. As you're planning to create new habits, think of one very small thing that you can do starting today in your game plan for change. Just one, and write it down. Don't overthink it. Just whatever comes to mind, just one little small thing. Go ahead. That's your challenge. And while you're doing that, let's go ahead. We're going to jump ahead to step number 2, and we're going to talk about the second step of our strategy, our 3-step strategy. And what you need to do is to think it and do it. So when you are combining what you're thinking and you're doing, that's what's going to help you be more successful. And to think about it, you want to start by choosing your attitude. Don't dread it. Trying to stick to things that you don't enjoy can be a recipe for disaster. So if you're trying to get in shape again, using that physical exercise example, it's easy to assume that gym memberships are the only option. That's not true. Instead of a treadmill, maybe it's a bike ride or joining a local sports league. making sure you're paying attention to the thoughts that you're having along the way is important as well. So if you're starting to avoid your new habits, and you feel like quitting, pay attention to those feelings. Try to analyze where the thoughts are coming from, how you're rationalizing them, and ask yourself if you're engaging in any negative self-talk. Are you finding excuses? Some of the things that often come up at this point are, well, I don't know how to do that. I guess I just won't do it anymore. Or we tell ourselves, well, why should I do it? I'm not going to succeed anyways. And another classic one, I just don't have time to do it. So to give you perspective, these are actually just defense mechanisms that your brain uses to cope with discomfort. So there's actually a physical aspect to this. The subconscious part of your mind is conditioned to do this when you're moving out of your comfort zone into uncharted territory. So the science behind this is something that I use in my fully resourced coaching program. So beware, expect it's going to happen, and just don't let these thoughts have power over you, okay? The other thing that you need to remember in step number 2, when you're thinking it and you're doing it, is to stick to your commitment. Well, you might be asking, what if I need a day off? Is it okay to skip a day? Well, here's the deal. It's okay to skip a day, but don't skip 2. All right. Once the habit is solidly fused into your routine down the line, you might be able to take a few days off and then jump back on the horse. But in the beginning, where you're at, when you're starting, you've got to skip no more than 1 day. So plan ahead. Make sure you come up with a plan for what to do if you need to skip a day. Also, when engaging in a new habit, it can be easy to just plain forget. So put some reminders around your house, your office, put some reminders on the calendar on your phone, anywhere else you frequent in order to stay on top of your habit. So this brings us to challenge number 2 for step number 2. Go ahead, open your webinar guide to page 3, and what you should be doing at this point is to write a list of reasons why you decided to make this change, and then you'll have it to refer back to. It's a list that will be a reminder of your why when you start feeling unmotivated. So go ahead, page 3 of your webinar guide, go ahead, write down a few reasons why you decided to set this goal and make this change. It's going to be really important. You want to keep that first and foremost. All right. Next step along the way is step number 3. And that's about perseverance. And something that will help you with perseverance is a concept that's called replacement. Replace what you're losing. If you're going to make a change, remove your bad habits, remember that every habit we form is filling a need. So perhaps your goal is to cut back on some time you're spending on social media on your phone. So to apply the replacement concept to this scenario, take a moment to think about what you like doing on your phone. What is the reason why you like spending time and spending hours scrolling through, say, Instagram? Ask yourself why. Then once you're aware of the need that action is fulfilling for yourself, make a plan. Determine once you stop that action, how are you going to replace that need? With Instagram, maybe it's fulfilling the need to see what your friends are doing, to stay up to speed. So instead of Instagram, what can you replace that with? Maybe it's just perhaps meeting up with a friend for coffee to check in and get up to speed with the latest. So that's a great example. Another thing that you need to remember for perseverance is to embrace imperfection. Perfect isn't possible. Don't expect that all of your attempts to change habits are going to be immediately successful. Progress isn't linear, and real change can be a long and trying journey. So consider it like this. There are no failures in what you're doing, just lessons learned. And when you're starting to make a shift in life, think of it as an experiment. This will help you withhold judgment and use the process as a learning experience. And if you're having a really tough time sticking to it, use this mindset to shift the blame of yourself off of yourself and start again with different factors that are in place. So surround yourself with people who mirror what you want to do. The people you spend your time with really are inevitably reflect back in your behavior, which is why it's important to associate with role models who have habits that you want to mirror. If you're trying to obtain more work-life balance, spend time with friends who practice this well. Step number 3 is challenge. What I want you to do here, and this is on page 4 of your webinar guide, is to go ahead and create a list of ways that you can show yourself grace and self-love. Creating that list of ways that you can show yourself self-love, it's about pre-planning how you can have regard for your own well-being and happiness. This will help you know what to do when you inevitably hit those speed bumps. They're going to happen. And once you've already reached a bit of a stop along the way, cut yourself some slack. You're doing the best you can, and tomorrow's a new day. And really, no one likes to think about it this way, right? No one likes pain. But either way, if you do it or you don't, there's going to be pain. It's called either the pain of self-discipline, if you do it, or if you don't, it's the pain of regret. You get to choose. So just like as a child, I can look back now and be thankful for the gift of consequences from my parents. When I was growing up in the summer, we loved to go swim at the local pool. We were there every day, but every day we also had chores from my mom. She would give us chores, and guess what happened if we didn't get our chores done in the morning? We didn't get to go to the swimming pool in the afternoon. I got to choose the pain of self-discipline in getting my jobs done at home, or the pain of regret of not being able to go swimming with my friends. You sow what you reap, for sure. Well, we've talked a lot about goals, habits, growth, decisions, strategy, discipline, but I think there's one word that really sums up our topic today in a nutshell, and that word is persistence. So persistence comes about to help develop our mind. Treat it like a muscle. Your persistence muscle is the way you can think about it. It will definitely make a difference. So a couple of years ago, I was working on a study of the Napoleon Hill book, Think and Grow Rich, with my mentor, Paul Martinelli. And one of the chapters in that book is called Persistence. So back in 1937, when Napoleon Hill wrote this book, he was studying all of the successful people in that day. People like Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, and his focus was on finding the secret to their success. And in this chapter, Napoleon Hill described the quality of persistence. He said that persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. So with that definition, it means that persistence strengthens and increases the quality of our individual character. And it's a character trait that you can develop. In this book study for us, when we went through it, one of the exercises we were given was to read the persistence chapter every day for 14 days in a row. And I'm like, 20 pages every day? No big deal, right? But here's the thing. This exercise was reading the chapter every day, 14 days in a row. And if we missed a day, if one of us missed a day, we would have to start over at day 1, even if we were already 13 days into it. So definitely a lesson on persistence, because when push comes to shove in the busyness of the day-to-day, it would have been so easy to not get it done. But I did it, 14 consecutive days. But I have to admit, in full transparency, there were several nights I had to stay up a little bit later and squeeze it in, because there was no way I was going to have to start over at day 1. I just was not going to let that happen. And even now, as I exercise persistence in my business and in my life, I remember the persistence chapter and that I successfully completed those 14 days in a row. I did it. It just made an impact on me. And remembering that really keeps me going. It's fused that concept of persistence in my mind. And think about it this way. With persistence, you are in fact more proactive rather than reactive in how you achieve your goals. So when you are more proactive, you're able to focus on preparing. But when you're more reactive, you end up focusing on repairing. So here's some comparisons when you take preparing versus repairing. Preparing lets you focus on today. Repairing makes you focus on yesterday. Preparing, it increases efficiency. Repairing consumes time. Preparing increases confidence, while repairing breeds discouragement. Preparing saves money, while repairing increases costs. Preparing pays now for tomorrow, while repairing pays now for yesterday. And preparing takes you to a higher level, while repairing becomes just that obstacle in the growth process. Preparing means you're intentional about a growth plan versus repairing, you're winging it. You're hoping for the best, but inevitably bouncing along, feeling every bump in the road. Well, with preparing, if you think about the preparing side with a growth plan, it can be hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. Books, podcasts, conferences, those are all good ways to learn and gain wisdom. But remember that learning is just the L in lift, right? You can't forget that you need to keep going. You need to integrate. You need to fuse it into your day-to-day in order to achieve transformation. So this is where mentors and coaches are important. They possess wisdom, support, and they make a difference in people's lives. They help you see things that you can't see because it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. Andy Stanley says that you will never maximize your potential in any area without coaching. It's impossible. You may be good. You may be better than everyone else, but without outside input, you will never be as good as you could be. So be intentional about adding mentoring and coaching into your life. It will absolutely make a difference in helping to close the gap for you. And as I had shared earlier, coaching leaders and people in their growth plans is an area where I help people and their businesses. So I want to mention that if you're interested in learning more about how I can help you, I do have a link in the chat box that has some coaching options, or it's also on the last page of your webinar guide if you want to take a look there. Go ahead, click into the link, and we can set up a time where you can learn more about the coaching programs that I have to offer. I have a new option called Fully Resourced starting next month in January of 2022. You can check it out. It's purely a complimentary discovery session to learn more. Now, you can also apply the preparing versus repairing comparison to your environment at work and on the job. This is synonymous with the work that I do in helping businesses with their culture. So building and strengthening to create high performance cultures. Take preparing in that scenario. That means you know where your culture is at. Are there any indicators of issues or gaps that you should be aware of? Versus repairing means that you are in the dynamics of executing your organization's strategic plan. You just can't seem to get out ahead of the challenges or the obstacles or any of those uncertainties that hold you back because you don't see where those success killers are lurking. You just can't be proactive in tackling them and getting them out of the way when you don't even know where they are. So I want to help you be more proactive with your overall business, your team environment, by inviting you to join my complimentary virtual LinkedIn presentation, Building a High Performance Culture. My next presentation is Monday, December 13th at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. You can RSVP at the link in the chat box, or you can find the link on the last page of your webinar guide. Or if you don't have LinkedIn to register, go ahead, shoot me an email at jan.degallier@gmail.com. So again, it's all about awareness. You can't close the gap if you don't know where you're at. And I think we can all relate to the frustrations that come with being stuck and not able to move forward. There's actually some really interesting nomadic tribes in Central Asia called the Tartar tribes. They use these types of frustrations essentially as warfare. They use it to speak a curse against their enemies. So they didn't call for their enemies' swords to rust or the people of their enemies to die of disease. Instead, the curse they projected to their enemies was, May you stay in one place forever. And guess what? If you don't improve yourself every day, that could be your fate. Stuck in the same place doing the same things, never expanding your territory or winning new victories. Kind of reminds me of that movie Groundhog Day. Did you see that one? In this movie, Bill Murray's character Phil, he was a weather reporter. He was reporting on the Groundhog Day event where the groundhog comes out to see if he sees a shadow. So it was February 2nd. And what happened, the reporter, every morning when he woke up, it was February 2nd again. He was caught in a time loop for almost 33 years, becoming more and more frustrated, being stuck in a monotonous, unpleasant, and repetitive situation. Over and over again. It's maddening and truly a curse. Stuck really stinks. So with that in mind, I want to just encourage you, check your chat box, look for some more growth resources, because now is the time for you, where you're at, to start thinking differently about how to stay persistent, build new habits, move forward, and achieve your goals. Make the decision to make a commitment to change, because change is the only way that you have the ability to grow. If you don't like the results you're getting, change it. If you want to do something with your life, stick with it to achieve your goals. You need to be able to focus on what you can do today. You need to be more in order to do more. So believe me, it's critical for your personal success or your professional success and the overall success that you see within your life, with your family and your business. Make it a priority. So check out the link that I shared, and you can look and see the info on page 5 of your webinar guide, where you see more options for growth and development programs that you can use as well. Now's the time to get started. I believe in you. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a great day. Much success to you. Bye for now.